So here we are in rural Northamptonshire with a collection of vehicles ready to start their epic journey tomorrow to Lviv in Ukraine. I've just been lucky enough to choose my own vehicle in advance of people coming tomorrow. Each vehicle is stuffed full with medical supplies and we're all good and ready to go, off for an early night and a very early start tomorrow. We've just arrived in Dortmund after a very long day, 6:30 start this morning, and in the course of the 12 hours we've been on the road, we've come through the Channel, we've driven through France, Belgium, and we are now in our hotel room in Germany. All 5 vehicles still together, all very excited, but a very long day and quite tired. Looking forward to another long day tomorrow on our way to Poland. Paul, tell me why it is that you decided to start this project.
Well, so going back one step, the Russian war in Ukraine for me seemed to be one of the most obvious cases of right v wrong in my lifetime, and not something I could stand back and ignore. I'm retired, I've got some time on my hands, and this is something I was able to do.
And I think this is the 3rd time you've been to Ukraine?
Yep, it's the 3rd time. It's a learning curve. We've so far, well, including this trip, we'll have taken 10 pickups, a couple of £100,000 worth of kit and medical aid out to Ukraine, and I hope we'll do further trips for as long as the war goes.
And how have you been received when you've arrived in Ukraine?
That's very interesting, actually. The Ukrainians, as far as I can see it, don't see this as charity. They're not, on the face of it, overwhelmingly grateful or effusive, although I know the aid is received very gratefully. I think the Ukrainians see themselves as defending Europe as a whole against the Russians. They're dying and being injured, and it's their lives that have been turned upside down. So gratitude, on the face of it, no, but that's not a reason not to be doing what we're doing. And they need our help in every possible way to keep going.
We're in the Lviv city centre and very struck by how peaceful everything seems. And yet, wherever you go, there are sandbags. We went into one of the big churches and huge boards full of pictures of soldiers who died in the war. It feels like perhaps the phony war that we talked about in the UK in 1939. Really, really strange. But today we're going off to deliver our vehicles, which will be great. We will get rid of the rest of the medical supplies into the care of the medical professionals. And then tomorrow we will head back to Poland. I'm just at the cemetery in Lviv, looking at the photograph of a young man just 1 year younger than my own daughter. And air raid sirens running in the background. It's just heartbreaking. Having been back from my trip to Ukraine for a couple of weeks now, I've had time to reflect on the experience. My first reflection is that 1,500 miles of driving is an awfully long way to go, and just how exhausted the whole team were when they got back. But I guess that's nothing compared to the exhaustion that our brothers and sisters in Ukraine are feeling following 18 months of war on their territory. So exhaustion, perhaps the first thing. I was very struck by the determination of the people that we met. The young woman who was riding on the evacuation trains from the front, 4 or 5 trains a week carrying up to 200 wounded soldiers. Very exhausting for her, but very determined to continue with the excellent work that they were doing. I think that we also ought to reflect on the realization that Ukraine really is the front line of Europe, the West, if you like, against Russia. And the Ukrainians that we met were very clear that, in a sense, they were fighting our proxy war. That's an awkward conversation for all of us. But I think overall, the biggest reflection I have is the huge amount of determination and comradeship that we met, whether it was the young woman riding on the trains as a medic, or whether it was the charity that were hand-making camouflage netting. The reason for that being that machine-made camouflage netting is made to a standard pattern, and apparently a drone can now recognise that this is camouflage. So here we were in a school building with yards and yards and yards of fishermen's netting and people hand-making the camouflage that would work for them. So determination to keep their soldiers safe, determination to continue this fight against an oppressor that they did not invite into their country. And finally, I think, an overwhelming sense of sadness. We visited one of the many cemeteries on our last but one day, and it was just a field full of flags. And as you walk between the flags and look at the information in respect of the people who've recently died, a whole generation of young men and women. One in particular struck me was only 10 days after his 21st birthday. What a huge waste of human life and a future huge waste of resource for Ukraine. Would I go again? Absolutely. I'm enormously grateful to have been able to go this time and very humbled by what we found.